Hi everyone. I'm Nikunj, co-founder and CEO at True Foundry, and I welcome you all to an episode with TrueML Talks, where today we have Sandeep Singh, who is the head of machine learning applied AI at a company called Beans.ai, and this a lot of practical knowledge from Sandeep's experience of working in computer vision and machine learning for a very long time that we will discuss and dive deep into today. With that, Sandeep, I welcome you to this episode of TrueML Talks, and I would love to get started with learning more about your journey, how you got to this place in machine learning, how you basically how overall learning about your journey here.
Yeah, sure, Nikunj. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited to share my whole journey. And it's a little bit of very interesting detour because basically I'm a computer science engineering undergrad. And then, of course, I started working in Bangalore. And then around 14 years ago, I moved to the Bay Area. And in between, during my job, I thought I'll become investment banker, and I studied CFA, and I joined Blackrock. And it was the time when LXNet paper was just out, like, and most of the PyTorch was not there, TensorFlow was not there, but I did ended up one of the fine weekends because I used to live in Foster City, which is very near to Stanford. So there used to be an initiative called Bay Area Deep Learning School. It was run by Andrew Ang and Andre Karpathy's PhD was not done that time. So I went there for a weekend of talks, and it was pretty intense, as you can imagine. A lot of maths and all the rock stars of AI world were in that particular room. For example, Bengio brothers were there, and Richard Socher was there, and the Karpathy was there, Andrew was there. I believe Feifei Lee was there. So you can imagine how much of powerhouse of room that was. And I was literally ML novice. So I just landed up there. But that weekend, one thing I realized, I think most important learning I realized that it's going to be fundamental shift in tech. And we are talking about like 10 years ago. And that is the when I decided I'm going to leave my job at BlackRock and I'll move back to more tech job. And I literally zoomed out the map and found out which is my location where I can get a job. And Oracle happened to be that one of the companies. It was in Redwood Shores. So I just joined that company. And then since then, I started training myself from being more of computer science engineer, finance guy to hardcore ML. And it was quite a journey. And then I did my master's from Georgia Tech, studied gazillion courses. In fact, the courses which were, in fact, Udacity was not born that time. So you can imagine how, and your Udacity's nano degree concept was not there. And I did courses from Stanford. I did online courses from MIT and so on. So it was quite a journey. And at Oracle, I was doing like here and there, tinkering with the text type of sentiment analysis type of job. I started working on myself while there was no official mandate for that matter. But my real journey started in like hardcore applied AI started here at Beans.ai. So Beans.ai, just to explain, it's most innovative mapping company you will come across. Like we are hyper accurate maps. When we say this, it sounds like very cliche, but actually what it means it exactly tells you where to park after parking, where to walk inside the building, where is the entrance, where is the elevator. And it is it is like a boon for delivery companies like FedEx, Instacart, DoorDash, these companies, because for them, if they save like 2 to 3 minutes per delivery, it's a significant amount of money. And that's what we do. And we are best in what we do. You can say we are a like platinum standard of this thing. So my role here was around 5 years ago to start the applied AI, machine learning, deep learning, and computer vision lab and applied solutions for Beans.ai. And that's where I have created a lot of solutions which are absolutely state of art in the sense of, for example, we do our own version of clustering and our own version of traveling salesman problem solutions, which runs on a hyper parallelized GPU CUDA based solution. And since then, we have been working on various solutions. And since last 1.5 years, we have been working on the text to image and text to text type of chatbot solutions, and we do use OpenAI and other type of open source solution, and we can dig deeper as we further go in our discussion.
Such a remarkable journey. Like, I have to tell you, Sandeep, like, I talk to, like, a lot of guests on the TrueML talks, and, like, we often ask this question about how you got here, because it's like, just out of curiosity, it's very, very interesting to learn. But I think this journey that you've described about, like, working with, like, computer science, and then getting to finance, and then coming back to AI through this, like, I guess that motivation through one of these courses, I guess, right? It's amazing. And the names that you mentioned, I can only imagine, like, the talent density in that room
Oh,
when
it
you
was,
went to the deep learning thing. Yeah.
Jeff Dean was there, and I was like, it is a
Wow.
very big deal.
Amazing, amazing. And like, again, coming from the machine learning field, I relate with all of these, like, names so much. Like, it's almost like a fanboy moment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
Super nice. Cool. I think this is very nice. One thing that I would love to understand is, like, so you talked a little bit about Beans AI, right? Tell us a
yeah.
little bit more about the company, like, what, like, in terms of, like, applications, like, you mentioned FedEx being an application. So maybe, like, shed more light on what are the type of users, product packaging, and like, a little bit details into the role of machine learning in building out the product and launching, essentially.
Yeah, sure, sure. So Beans.ai, actually, when we started our company, it was started by two of my friends, Nitin Gupta. He is a PhD from Cornell, and he worked in Google search, and he took care of a big initiative at Uber. And his co-founder is Akash Agrawal. He is also from IIT Mumbai. Even Nitin is from IIT Mumbai, and then he did PhD from Cornell. And Akash has a lot of background in original Yahoo analytics, as you can imagine. So these guys started the company, and they happen to be a friend of like more than a decade. But they we discussed that there is a scope of sprinkling and utilizing AI in whole mapping operations, because a lot of tools which we had already in place, um, if when we sprinkled AI on that, then it becomes like a human in the loop sort of process. And we really went all out to utilize apply. For example, imagine marking every single parking in a facility like Kaiser Permanente's hospital is like massive. But when you run with a model, it just does in a like maybe 60 second. And all you have to do just see the false positive and false negative and fix sometime. But that is like 45 minutes worth of task gets converted into 1 minute. And
Exactly.
and that is one simple example. While we have very intelligent clustering methods, where it finds all the related buildings, and all these data and the classifications of buildings, entrances, walkways, these are very useful for many different companies. For example, delivery, insurance, um, internet providers, and so on. So what Beans.ai offers, there's a multiple ways. It's a software as a service type of company. We have almost 4 apps for different purposes. We have a consumer app, and we get consumed by like APIs, and that's where our um, bread and butter lies, and that's where we are like best in a class. For example, if you enter address in Google, it probably drops you somewhere in a leasing house, but we exactly know which is your building. And in fact, we have augmented reality solution in a big building of block. It can literally show you which where is your unit in this building. You point your camera in that app, it can show you. In fact, for Super Bowl, we have this solution which we released last week, where we have mapped full stadium. And if you know your seat number, it can literally guide you which is your entrance, where to walk. And it is like full Minority Report. If you remember that movie, it's like full blown location intelligence platform, and we serve with multiple ways. And of course, we have a lot of on demand packaging for the solutions. That's where Beans.ai really shines.
Lovely, lovely. And in this regard, the main input data source when you're kind of doing the training of the
Yeah.
model, is it a lot of satellite imagery, or this some other data set that you also input? And how do you get like the indoor space data, I guess?
Yeah, that's where our main expertise lies. So it's not just the satellite imagery. Of course, satellite imagery is the main part. We
Mhm.
use multiple types of bands. For example, to detect the water bodies accurately, we use a spectral band of the maps, and for greenery, for that matter. And we have a lot of illustrated map from the societies, which we take and our algorithms consume them, and they show the result of consumption to a human, and human just glances, oh, looks good, it just accepts it, or it just does the whatever is the false positive or false negative. So it's a more of the humans on steroid of AI, that side of approach. And it is very much designed by a lot of experience from our engineers. Our CTO is a Jack. He is a fantastic person. The solutions he envisions, those are pretty amazing. It's like more than one type of data. We use a lot of public data and a lot of proprietary data acquired from our partners. So what happens? A lot of location data, a lot of text data, a lot of image data, and a lot of satellite data. We use this multimodality of consumption to form a location intelligence, which eventually gets served and consumed. So you can imagine it's not a one approach which will consume, or one model which will consume. In fact, most of our solutions are series of models, where
Makes
many of them are like traditional computer vision, traditional computer science, you can say. We do a lot of alpha beta pruning sort of solution, and that's where our really amalgamation of approaches shines.
makes a ton of sense. Amazing. And I would love to dive a little bit deeper into these models, these series of models as well. But before
Yeah.
that, just to orient, in terms of how you have structured the team, Sandeep, in terms of the teams that are building the models, maintaining the models, like maintaining
Yeah.
things in production, etc. Like, what's the handoff process, if any, between like models to these apps, essentially? Right? How do these deployments work? Would love to understand a bit of the context there as well.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, when I started working on this company, I realized I need to learn a significant amount of geography, which
Okay.
we studied in our elementary schools and we never touched it back. So I had to go back and understand how the geographical information system works. We use a lot of solutions from S3. If you know, S3 is like a Google of mapping. So we use a lot of we are in fact we are a S3 startup partner, and we use a lot of solutions from S3. And S3 has various ways of doing computer vision, and also we do off the S3 platform computer vision, which you can say PyTorch based solutions developed in either in VS Code or in notebooks, and then trained on cluster of GPUs and CPUs. And we do everything other than proof of concept development on the GCP. So GCP is our shop, and all the models are being served from the GCP VMs. And because not a lot of algorithm is a non-parallelizable. For example, when you're doing some sort of reductionist algorithm, you can't parallelize it. So those algorithms run on like 500 CPUs because of our scale is massive. But for the parallelizable algorithm, we use GPU and CUDA-based solution. So we basically have model versioning, data versioning, and all those type of bells and whistles from Google on their Vertex platform. But we did experiment a lot with, and we know this space is so fast changing. We do experiment with a lot of others. For example, I remember the very first time we created our labels, it was label box, which nobody talks much about because so
Right.
many fancy solutions are there. We did evaluate, if you know the company called V7 Labs, it's from Cambridge, very
Okay.
innovative company. I think it was the first company which utilized the super pixel sort of algorithm in annotation. And we did evaluate landing.ai, In fact, for Landing.ai, we were working straight directly with Professor Andrew
Andrew?
Ang's team.
Okay.
In fact, I in one of the kickoff meeting, he himself was there. So we use a lot of the concept which he introduced last year, like visual prompting sort of thing. And so we do mix and match, and there is a full autonomy what you want to use, because we are a smaller company. We are because for us, moving fast and moving better is more of essence rather than cementizing the
Sure,
process.
yes.
So we use a combination of that, and the structure wise what actually happens, a lot of work which machine learning or deep learning teams do is driven by the geographical knowledge. So that's where we have expertise, like our chief GIS officer. He is the one who works with machine learning and deep learning teams, and a lot of engineering people we have to work. So there is a like a on demand collaboration which needs to happen because of the specialization of the solution. But all in all the tools and techniques, you can say it's basically the uh, PyTorch, VS Code, and Google Cloud providers solutions.
Got it. So very interesting. Like two things that I would love to follow up on this, Sandeep. Like when you had started, you mentioned that besides the experimentation training jobs and stuff, like everything runs on GCP. So where
Yeah.
do those experimental jobs run outside of GCP? I guess.
So for the proof of concept or development stuff, we have our own machines, GPU machines. In
Oh,
fact, we have laptops with RTX 5000. So we use that because I know when you're developing and you're worried about the cost of running GPU in a cloud, it just it consumes your attention. So just to
makes
reduce the cognitive load of developer, what we do when you're developing, just use your own machine, because
makes
anyways you'll have
sense.
a smaller data, you're trying to overfit.
Makes sense.
And most of the time, what, for example, when one specific example I will say, when I was trying to develop the sense of color similarity algorithms, it was for the roof. How if two roofs have a similar color, and or two roofs are similar, so similarity of roof is just not the color, it's about the texture and the boundary and greenery and whatnot. So to develop that model, we literally had to do huge amount of experimentation on GPU, and to do that experimentation on the GPU farm, I would say it would have costed us a lot. So we ended up using our own on-premise machines just to develop it. But there have been situations where, for example, we were running the clustering algorithm, density-based algorithm, and those were like, as you know, those are reductionist algorithms, so you can't parallelize them. They So for that we had to use like 500 CPUs in parallel in Google just to build. For example, when we did the test run, we created the cluster of every single buildings in Cupertino, and just the Cupertino itself was like 1.2 million tiles. So you can imagine that is just one epoch, and doing that again and again to learn the color similarity patterns and other stuff, it was quite expensive stuff. But so we do pick and choose of
Makes
how
sense.
things go, because being a agile company, you have to have everything is acceptable as soon as long as it solves your problem.
For sure, yes, absolutely. That makes sense. And you also mentioned that you'll use VMs in GCP.
Yeah.
So is the company kind of like, starting to like utilize any Kubernetes at all, or like the most of
Yes.
the
Yes, we do have a Kubernetes clustering, and we have people who take care of that. Because what happens, our business, as you can say, mainly we serve the delivery and logistic companies, and
yeah,
logistics companies have a serious amount of seasonality. For example, from October to December, we are like hyper busy, and at one point of time, current numbers I don't know, but at one point in time, 1 in 20 packages was flowing through our own software. So 5% of packages in US are flowing through us. So because of the our scale affected by seasonality, we do have to really scale up, scale down vertically, horizontally at times. For that matter, without clustering, we cannot pan it out. So we do have Kubernetes clustering, and we use and a lot of solutions are BigQuery based. So sometimes it happens automatically for us. We don't have to worry about it. But yeah, you're right. We do use Kubernetes.
Makes sense. And in terms of Vertex AI, Sandeep, like what are the things in Vertex AI that you feel like is the most useful for the ML developers workflow internally? Because Vertex AI again is a very large platform. So
Yeah,
like the meta
yeah,
term does not really capture the essence. So like would
yeah.
love to understand
In fact,
what is.
yeah, in fact, Google won't know what does Vertex AI mean
Yes, exactly.
because it
Yeah,
means too many things. But
yeah,
for us, mainly for the Vertex.ai, which we consumed, were for computer vision tasks, and it was more of the experimentation. Um, and also when we were trying to do our this chatbot experimentation, we have a chatbot which can answer support questions for thousands of drivers which use our app. So for that, I tried to evaluate the Palm APIs, but it, it it was not as great as it was with OpenAI's, or in fact for them, we experimented with Falcon 40B model, and in a lot of cases, fine-tuned context-based um, Falcon 40B apps were doing better than Palm APIs, so we abandoned that thing. But I think one of the main reason of evaluating Google before anything else, because all our data and the all our ecosystem is Google, so it was easier to mount the bucket and so on. It is a more of the operational decision rather than the qualitative. But eventually, what we realize, we have to go to other places because of the higher quality in terms of agility and models, and other thing is that most of the ML provider, if you know, and that goes for Google and many other, they let you train the model and they host the model and you get charged by the APIs. But for places like us, we are not, we need, first of all, we need to run our model sometimes at edge. And once we train the model, because we paid for the training of the model, we should not be paying for the API usage of that model. We should have capacity to download the model and host in our own environment.
right.
And that is the big blocker, because it's a pure money, right? So everybody wants to tap in that revenue. But
Yeah,
I find it, um, it's not correct. I would say, like, there is a dilemma in the sense, because I paid for the training of the model, then I should be the one who should be able to download and not pay for anything
makes
else.
sense.
Um, of course, you should have option to host in more secure environment like Google GCP. For that matter, landing.ai is much better in that sense, because once you train the model, it lets you run the models in disconnected manner in your on-premise. They have SDKs to do that. That's pretty amazing. Um, so Google per se is like, because it's a convenience, that's why we try it. But eventually it boils down to cost and possibility of making it more operational easy for your purpose.
Makes sense. Understood. Very, very helpful context. Like Sandeep, thank you so much for sharing some of this infrastructure setup as well. I would
Yeah,
love to switch gear a little bit towards some of the other models that you had referred to. So I know that you mentioned that you all are using GenAI both for
yeah,
computer vision and text-based processing as well. So would
yeah,
love to understand a bit more about what are the types of applications that you're going after.
yeah,
One is the chat application, but then there are some other applications that you refer to as well. And what are the
yeah.
sort of models that you're dealing with? Would love to understand that.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the when we started computer vision, it was a different age in terms of computer vision landscape, um, because we are talking before. So we do a lot of detection, classification. Segmentation is one of the biggest, most intensive job which we do, because you can imagine it's a noisy satellite images, and and there we have various options of like doing semantic segmentation versus instant segmentation and so on. We do all of them, and as you can imagine, most of the model when we started, they were like ResNet based, backbone based models. So, for example, the version of Unit which we used, it was a ResNet 35 based backbone encoder and decoder. And that's
Yeah,
what we have used for our parking and building segmentation, and the walkway segmentation, greenery segmentation, and so on. But for detection type of model, I think initially when we were doing there, it was a more of the customized YOLO type of solutions. But then we switched to this visual transformer later on, and so on. So we did experiment a lot. In fact, all the models which are running in production, there is no theme of model, because for every task, we just pick and choose what is the latest and easily available. And of course,
Makes
what happens, all these new models, when they come, it's not just about being savvy with the new model, it's about reaping the benefits of new ones. In most cases, one of the benefits which uh, I saw the trend in, ease of training. So every single new model comes, the ease of fine tuning is much more available with the newer models. And we heavily deploy transfer learning. So that is why we have a implication of using the models where they have to Apache licensed, so we can use it for commercial purpose. And but for a lot of segmentation tasks, we did not use transfer learning, and we started from the scratch, because we realized that after experimentation we realized that it makes sense to have our own model from scratch, because we are really trying to overfit for a specific task. We did that, and we did some work on the 3D street view detections, and entrance detection, that sort of thing. In terms of text, we have been building multiple. We did a lot of experimentations first, but eventually we deployed all solutions where it was about the increasing the efficiency. For example, one of the solutions which we have is for a particular customer, because we deal with a lot of courier companies and they place orders. So when they send an email, email has some sort of request of, can you pick up from order here, and can you drop it here, this is the time, this is the person. It has a lot of human readable details. So what we did, we created a solution where bot can consume that email and create an order in system and bill back to the customer, and whole thing is touchless. So
Oh,
when
wow.
they send the email, order gets created, and they get the confirmation email. And sometimes and it has a lot of nuances. For example, they send something, it has a typo, so then it replies back that, do you mean this, do you want to fix this, and it will write in a human manner. So people really feels wide glove treatment. And So that is one of the innovative solutions. But the chatbot which we did was, it was about, it's like a support bot. So we have apps which are used by customers, and while using that app, sometimes people have question how to do this versus how to do that, and they can literally talk to our bot, and bot answer that question on the basis of our knowledge repository. We have a lot of knowledge articles in Zendesk, and we have scraped everything and trained our model on that. And for that, we experimented with both. We used Falcon 40B and Mistral 7B type of solutions. And while experimenting, I'm sure you know the company H2.ai, which is in Mountain View. So they have this LLM Studio, which is a GUI based, where you can experiment with various model and see where your model or your data works better, and how the fine tuning can work, and it can connect to your VM environment, and you can push it to Hugging Face also. So we use that to do the faster experimentation. And thanks to H2.ai, that tool has significantly enabled us to do the to make a faster experimentations, because it just lets you decide for yourself. Because a lot of these models, when they come, there's some sort of benchmark or elo score type of thing attached, but those things are so academic, and your data and your task has to be really specified. So that is why when people ask how you evaluate, I'll say never take these benchmarks by heart, just experiment for yourself. So H2Os has been a good help for us to experiment faster. And they have like very, and they're very agile in the sense, their dev team, I know, they really pick things up. For example, I remember when a lot of text models, Llama and all those things were coming, they are enabling everything in their studio, and it's very easy to perform LoRa type of training and whatnot. So Yeah, we do use, like, as you can see, we are like at the cusp of these, and our
Of
office is
course.
in Palo Alto. We are very much in the heart of Silicon Valley, so we do get to talk to a lot of developers, scientists, and researchers, and we try to consume that and enable us for the same purpose.
Very interesting. I think you shared a bunch of insights around the different open source models, like
Yeah.
open weight models that you end up using, transfer
Yeah.
learning, training from scratch, etc. Interestingly, and you also talked about a bunch of text based models as well, so Mistrals and Falcons, etc. You
Yeah.
haven't touched on let's say things like DALI or Stable Diffusion and all. Is that something not much of use internally, or you are also using that?
No, no, we do use them. I missed to specify. So we are working on a solution. So we have a lot of drivers when they deliver things. They have proof of delivery concepts, and we provide proof of delivery in our platform in terms of fleet management and so on. So what happens? They take a photo of the package, and then that package, that photos gets uploaded. So we are working on a solution where we can take the photos of that image, and try to describe what is in the image. For example, if the package is left on a side stool or something like that, so we just specify that. And also, what we do, if we have one image, we try to create multiple variations of the image just by using nerf sort of application. So we do use a lot of text to image type of solution. For example, when person delivers package, they add some note, and that
Right.
note and proof of delivery lets us imagine what the package might look like. So we try to create multiple variations of the image which they leave. So that's where the stable diffusion
Okay.
comes into the picture. But the amazing part is that it's a more of the um, novelty feature. But we realize when a, a, a driver, when uploads one photo, and when he will be seeing in future more than one photos, he will be like really good experience, like user experience will be amazing, that it's
Yes,
not
yeah.
just the one package. And sometime we are working on finding if the package is damaged and so on, and all those analytics will be in place.
Super cool. Super cool. Sandeep, how are you hosting some of the more some of the larger open source models, let's say Falcon 40B or something, right? Like, are you using H2O to host these models for inferencing, or are you doing this mostly on Vertex? Are you doing this mostly by yourself?
Yeah,
Would love to understand.
mostly we are doing in the Google ecosystem. But because what happens with these models, inference is a like smaller animal to kill, but training is like a mammoth. Like you need 5 times GPU at least on an average. So we try to do the pick and choose of the. For example, for some of the jobs we use RunPod and runpod.io, if you know. And
Yes.
we experimented with Paperspace. Very, I think way back we tried to check into the Lambda labs, but Lambda labs were not the most competitive in terms of cost. So we did not do that. But we do. As far as the inferences concerned, it's mostly Google-based solutions. We did try doing on-premise hosting, but it was too much of a headache. So we mostly do in Google, and I think now it's a little better, but previously getting a sufficient amount of GPUs in particular geography was a pain. So that's why we had to struggle to go to other providers. And we did experiment with the NGC, if you know, the NVIDIA cloud
Yes.
platform.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because especially when we are doing some version of the, what do you say, the traveling salesman problem, it was a linear programming convexity optimization sort of solution. For that we did use NVIDIA's, because we started there, one of the early accelerator partners sort of thing, for one of their APIs called CuPy. It's a CUDA Pi. It stands for CUDA Pi. Yeah, so it's a pick and choose, but mostly it's a Google at end to deploy, because our other apps are there.
Got it. So when you say Google to deploy these models, actually there are a couple of interesting variations as well. Like do you end up using like vertex endpoints to deploy these, or do you end up using like vanilla VMs where you
Yeah,
deploy and
vanilla
manage?
VM. Vanilla VMs, because what happens if you deploy on a vertex, they give you some control, significant amount of control, but they don't give you full control. But
I see.
that feeling that you don't have a full control on where it is running, how is it scaling up, scaling down. Of course, to a lot of people, it's a feature, but for us, we have this
Makes
inherent
sense.
concern that it might stop us from being too fast when we need it. So that
Makes
is why we always prefer, and right, all these models, they have, most of them have some ML flow type of scripts to spin up instances, deploy models, and do this or that. So we did use them. Uh, but I think as the time is passing, whole process is maturing, and the support which uh, we are getting from these bigger companies is getting better. So I think in future, very much
got
Vertex
it.
type of solution might be. But to just to complete our discussion, one platform which we have not used a lot, Azure. We do use for some other purposes, but Azure is becoming better and better in terms, especially in terms of model hosting, provisioning, and the callback hooks, and the availability of GPUs, and especially with OpenAI being there, availability of latest and greatest techniques faster. So we are evaluating if the Azure might be a way to go as well for data science purposes.
Interesting. Got it. Okay. Very, very nice. And when you're hosting these models either on Google or Azure, do you end up using some of the model servers like, VLM, TGI? How do you experiment between those in terms of latency, cost of hosting, etc.?
Yeah, so what we have, to be honest, we are not that concerned at this moment. But what we do, we do the macro estimation of the cost. For example, when we are reading data or crunching, so we do the macro calculations in terms of how much approximately it will cost, because that's the questions I get asked. So we do that. But I know we need more intelligent solution in that regard in terms of how much your experimentation gonna cost. And that's the theme across the industry, right? Most of people, they are experimenting, but what I have found that making intelligent decisions in terms of what to do saves you a lot of money, rather than while doing and being conscious about how much we are spending. For example, whether to build through prompt engineer rack based application versus whether to fine tune, that is like a big dilemma.
Yeah.
We know fine tune applications looks much graceful, because you just ask a question, they tell you answer, or some sort of RLHF type of approach. But in terms of cost, we know, right? Prompt engineered applications are like almost zero cost. They just
Yeah.
run by API. So we do use prompt engineering and fine tuning, and we do the conjunction between them. And the major factor for that is the cost. So
Makes sense.
it's, I would say, if a startup or if a mid-sized company like us ever have to do training from scratch, it's a death wish. We should never ever do that, because the cost and the headache
It's
which
not.
it might come, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. I think this is supremely insightful, Sandeep. Thank you so much for sharing. I would like maybe like to close off with hearing some of your contributions to you have had a bunch of experience around deeplearning.ai, Forbes Tech Council as
Yes.
well. Would you hear some of those contributions as well, and
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
did you get into that? What was again the story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, great that you asked it, because most of the time we straight jump to the deeper meat and juice, and we don't talk about the meta stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for asking that. And I would love to, because what is happening initially, I was talking to my wife. I was telling that AI is going to be everywhere. It will affect jobs, and it is like 5 years ago, and she was not that much convinced initially. And now we see that that moment is right here.
Yeah.
Like every single aspect of a job. It's like becoming a database. Like every company has a database, so every company will have a AI, right? So it's like one of the verticals of tech stack. And I would say like one of the most influential people or community which has really helped me think critically and do decisions wisely rather than being influenced by the big AI labs or what is in the social media and other stuff is I'm sure you know fast.ai.
Yes.
So Fast.ai is run by Jeremy Howard and Rachel Thomas, and they were right here in the San Francisco, but now they moved to Australia because of their personal preferences. But I would say Fast.ai had significant impact on how I adopt things, and don't be afraid of being critical about anything, no matter how shiny and prestigious it is. um, because when you criticize honestly, you make them better, make you better. And that's what I learned from Jeremy's approach of doing the research, creating new things. So that definitely helped me a lot. And also one thing which I really learned from Jeremy is that in this domain, mentoring is very important, in the sense getting mentored and mentoring others. Both are equally important. So I was lucky enough to be mentored by many wonderful engineers and researchers across the globe. And I have taken that insight and I myself have mentored hundreds of people across the globe. In fact, I would say I'm a part-time AI educator. In fact, last year I would say like more than like 17 speaking engagements I did on various AI conferences. Um, so the purpose was not just to build a brand and be famous and all this. It was mostly to engage with community meaningfully. So going and talking to the people who really want to get into the AI, great engineers, like fabulous engineers who wants to get into this space, and explaining them what the process is. It's like it's a short term also and long term also. And I had like great experience. In fact, I would say um, last year one of the speaking conferences I conducted a workshop on text to image stable diffusion whole. It was a whole 10-hour long grueling workshop in Bangalore, India. And these guys made me travel to India, and just out of curiosity, because I worked in Bangalore 6 years, I wanted to see the ecosystem of AI now. And I last year, I believe August or November, I traveled, and I had amazing time there. Like I had a one talk and one workshop of whole day, and that workshop turned out to be amazing experience for me. And it definitely helped a lot of people because they ask how to get in. There are a lot of assumptions, like for example, right, if you're lucky enough to be from Stanford, Berkeley, CMU, um, very good for you, but not everybody has
Right.
opportunity to do that. So
Yeah.
and that's where I learned from Jeremy to do very cutting edge fundamental work, because this domain is very novel in terms of you can really make your impact even if you're not from one of the top AI labs. Um,
Mm.
and the fast.ai has history of creating these people like these. Like so many people, wonderful people who work there, the people who mentor on their communities. First of all, it's free, and second, it's a top notch. So
Right.
having top notch thing free is amazing. So I also engage with a lot of fast.ai communities and across the globe. I in fact This May I'm planned to travel to um, AI conference in Amsterdam in May, and there also I'll get to meet a lot of AI folks. Last thing, just to conclude on this. So I thought that I do a lot of contribution in terms of making people enable how to get into AI, how to get into AI meaningfully, not just be rage adopter of the same thing. So I started working with a company in India called Analytics Vidya. They are pretty famous, I believe. So I'm developing with them a full blown Gen AI course, and so I'm teaching their, of course, text to image stable diffusion part, and there are other wonderful instructors. And that course, I realized that it's like a good way to give back to community meaningfully. and I hope to get like some meaningful feedback. And these guys, they really put their oil into it to make it extremely well.
Right.
So I believe for me, and there's a saying, this thing is comes from Jeremy Howard, is that if you can't explain anything easily and nicely, it simply means you don't understand it yourself. And that really, I really took that advice by heart. So the more and more time I explain to people that how to get into this space or that space, how to do this or that, I really, it's a reflection on me. So I am really engaged in community with engaging and enabling people to adopt these technologies and so on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is so wonderful that, you not only like you're excelling at your job, your work, etc. You're also kind of giving back to the community. And I feel like this is how the cycle goes, right? Like you
Yeah.
take something, you give back, you probably give back more, and then we all keep improving from there. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, indeed. That's the theme for my whole of AI work.
it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sandeep, for taking time to talk with us and share all your insights with the community. This is, I'm sure, like this is one more way in which you're adding to the community, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, sure, Nikunj. It was very lovely talking to you. I would love to meet you in person when you're in South Bay.
for sure.
Okay.